Geoff Mosher covers the Birds. FanRag Sports is the Eagles getting ready to take on the LA Chargers. And the big matchups in this one, I want to get Jeff's take on that very question we asked, PT, about the Eagles' defense, the fact that they won the game, but the fact that they lost a couple of guys and gave up 21, does it overshadow the fact that, are we not
giving enough?
Are we not putting enough attention on the fact that they gave up those 21 points because they won the game? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the thing is that Fletcher Cox goes down, Hicks goes out of the game, the secondary starts to give up points. They win the game. Everybody remembers the Jake Elliott 61-yard field goal, but they maybe don't put enough credit or enough emphasis on the fact that, hey, they gave up 3 touchdowns in 5 minutes and 21 seconds of game clock. That's a little troubling.
Let's get into it. Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports, covers the Eagles, and he joins us now. And, Jeff, is it overshadowed a bit? Like we keep saying, man, the Eagles' depth and, they made it through with a lot of injuries, but they lose Fletcher Cox. It looks like he could possibly be out again. They did give up 21 points in the fourth quarter to a team that's pretty inept offensively.
Yeah, 24 points in the fourth quarter, I think it was.
Okay, 24.
I joked during the game that the Giants, after the third quarter of that game, and that had been, 11 quarters of their season, they still only had 1 touchdown, and Nelson Aguilar had 2. So what a time for the Giants to be alive, right? To have less touchdowns than Nelson Aguilar. But, I mean, you clearly saw in the fourth quarter, guys, a result of the Eagles just kind of the straw breaking the camel's back, in a sense, when you lose Fletcher Cox and you lose Jordan Hicks and you're already without Ronald Darby and Rodney McLeod and Jalen Watkins, who really I thought did a nice job in Kansas City, replacing Darby as outside corner in like 3 cornerback sets. So, and to add to injury, you go into to LA, and I'm not going to get used to saying LA Chargers. It's going to take me they'll probably be back in San Diego by the time I finally get used to calling them the LA Chargers. But to go into that game, also losing now Darren Sproles. I mean, if you were to write a list of who are the 10 best Eagles, right? I mean, you would have to put Hicks and Cox and Sproles in there, and certainly Ronald Darby and his importance to the corners. I mean, they're really it's one thing to lose players and not have great depth. It's another thing to lose your best players at certain positions, especially at certain positions that are thin, like corner and running back.
Yeah, and losing Fletcher Cox, I mean, it's apparent that he's most likely not going to play this week. And you wonder, last week they kind of made it through because the Giants don't run the ball a whole heck of a lot. The pass rush wasn't that big of a factor because they were getting the ball out of their hands so fast. But losing them for a full game, for maybe multiple weeks, that's where you could start to feel the pinch of that.
Absolutely, Mike. Every week it's a different opponent and a different strength and a different weakness. So if you really look at what the Eagles have done well for the first 3 weeks defensively, in week 1, Jim Schwartz was able to bring a lot of blitz pressure against Kirk Cousins, and it worked out really well. Week 2, even though that game got a little bit out of hand in the fourth, I mean, they really hung in there because they were putting a lot of pressure on Alex Smith. And again, Jim was able to dial up some blitzes. Even without Darby, they were able to get some pressure on him. Last week, as you mentioned, pressure not as much of an issue because the Giants were playing that short game and dink, 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 dunk. This week, Phillip Rivers is probably, if you were to write down a list of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks against the blitz, he's always on it. So it's not going to be a game where Jim Schwartz is going to be throwing, a lot of 6-man, 7-man, 0 blitzes at Rivers. He's going to have to play off coverage again. And without Fletcher Cox, that enables the Chargers to kind of put the double team on Jernigan. I think they can live with Bo Allen, who's not really a great interior rusher. Good player, not a great one. And so now you have a lot of your focal point has to be Brandon Graham, Vinnie Curry, and Derek Barnett and Chris Long. Those guys absolutely must be able to generate pressure to get at Phillip Rivers because Jim's probably going to play his safeties deep and play more off coverage. And if you don't get to Rivers, he is going to pick apart those 2 corners, and Jalen Mills especially, worse than Eli was able to do in the fourth quarter.
And, Jeff, that's what I wanted to ask you. When you look at the LA offense, what concerns you the most? Because they seem to have a good back with Gordon. They seem to have nice weapons at wide receivers. Then you add in Gates and this guy Rivers you keep talking about, who's so masterful with the blitz. What concerns you the most about the LA offense?
Well, that's really it. And you mentioned Gordon. I'm not a huge Melvin Gordon fan, but I will admit he's played a lot better. He's really learned to run out of that shotgun system that they have coming from Wisconsin, where they don't do that much, and he's picked it up. He's a good receiver. You know, you lose Fletcher Cox, who's also really good against the run, and they play this scheme that occasionally, now they've been really good against, they were very good against the run against Washington, pretty good against Kansas City, too. It was really just that one that Kareem broke. But without Fletcher and with that kind of need to get to the quarterback, you hope that it's not one of those games that you see every once in a while from a Jim Schwartz team where they forget that they have to stop the run first. So if Gordon's able to put them in, manageable third downs and get Phillip Rivers looking at second and short, and he's able to pop. And again, if they're able to kind of have enough up front to handle Brandon Graham and Vinny Curry, then Rivers is the type of guy who will just pick you apart. And their offense was bad against Kansas City, but for the first two games, even though they lost, I think it was pretty good. I know Rivers' passer rating in the first game was like 111. His second game was 99. So he's had a little bit better of his start to the season, even though they're winless, than, say, Eli, who was getting killed and clobbered and, had no choice but to throw the ball in 1 or 2 seconds. So Rivers has got a lot of speed on the Travis Benjamin is, I think, averaging 18 yards a catch. So I would fear the most the ability of them to move the ball in the run game and then set up some plays to Travis Benjamin. At some point, guys, as much as I give credit to Jalen Mills, he's out there and he's fighting, and he's literally been targeted. I saw PFF said he's been targeted more
21 times.
Alone.
21 last week.
More than anybody in 12 years, right? There are only 6 corners in the NFL who have been targeted less in the whole season than he was that game. At some point, that thing is going to unravel a little bit. I think it started a little in the fourth quarter, but you throw Douglas out there and you throw Mills out there against some real good speed elements, and at some point, it's going to hurt them.
Hey, Jeff, give me your take on losing Sproles and now what?
Yeah, it's tough. Because now you have to lean on LeGarrette Blount a little more. And while he played well against the Giants, I think the coaches were very careful to make sure that he didn't have as many. I think he had 12 carries, right? And it was 6 first half, 6 second half. And I think that's much like with Darren and his workload, you're always worried about kind of preservation for the long haul, because LeGarrette Blount really fell off last year in December, having 299 carries. And again, they got him running last week against the Giants, but they did it mostly when they went under center. And that's really not exactly what Doug Peterson wants to do all game. He doesn't want to make this adjustment where he's always going under center to give the ball to Garrett Blount, because it's kind of telegraphic, and eventually, teams will catch up to that. So they really don't have a great fit other than Wendell Smallwood, who I thought made, obviously finally got the ball. I said last week to you guys, he's got to get the ball more than 4 times a game. He did well. He kind of has to step up, but there's just really no replacing everything that Darren Sproles gives you. It's interesting to see Jamal Charles playing really well out with the Broncos, because I thought that was a guy the Eagles probably should have given a harder look at in the offseason than, say, LeGarrette Blount, because he fits that offense to a T, obviously going back to his time with Kansas City and Andy and Doug there, and he's doing really well now. But that's water under the bridge, obviously. They're going to have to make do. But this just goes back to the theme that they're doing well. They're 2-1, but every game they lose a really important player, and then the next game is like, well, now we got to make do.
Right. Well, we'll see how it all unfolds without Sproles. It'll be, and by the way, a big loss in the punt return game, too. They tried Torrey Smith last week, but they don't want their starting receiver doing that. I guess it's going to be Barner this week, and that gives you, you lose some explosion out of your offense, but you lose a huge part of your return game.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by the Barner signing. I thought maybe they might be more tempted to sign Bryce Treggs off the practice squad for his speed and his punt return ability, and then just fill that running back role with more reps for Corey Clement. So maybe they just didn't want to rely so much on inexperience. But it's, I'm Kenyon Barner's a nice player.
They got to like
Barner's.
They got to like Barner's pass catching ability, I guess.
Yeah, but I thought that's what they like from Byron Marshall. I mean, that's another guy that they could have promoted if they wanted to. So it's just kind of strange that you have these guys in your program and all with you throughout camp and everything, and here you bring in Barner, who happened to be with San Diego.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, there I go again. Who happened to be with the LA Chargers and for training camp, and maybe there's something behind that, although I really don't think so. What can he tell them about the Chargers that Frank Reich can't tell them? What really?
All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, Geoff Mosher, and check him out at Geoff Mosher NFL. FanRag Sports covers the Eagles and other Philly sports for FanRag Sports. All right, pal, take care.
All right, guys, talk to you next